The gymnasium smelled of polished wood and nervous anticipation, a cavernous space where dreams collided with reality under the harsh glow of fluorescent lights. Kash Patel stood backstage, his palms slick with sweat, clutching a crumpled note that read, "Sing something, loser. Bet you'll choke." The words, scrawled in jagged ink, were meant to sting, and they did. At 17, Kash was the kid who faded into the background of Jefferson High, a lanky Indian American with wire-rimmed glasses, always buried in books about history or tinkering with his guitar in the quiet of his bedroom. He wasn't the type to command a stage. Yet here he was, roped into the school's annual talent show by a cruel prank from a clique of seniors who thought his awkwardness would make for cheap laughs. The crowd buzzed beyond the curtain, a sea of faces waiting for the next act. Kash's heart pounded like a war drum. He wasn't supposed to be here. But as he peeked through the curtain's edge, he saw his little sister, Priya, in the front row, her eyes wide with unwavering belief. For her, he couldn't back down. Kash had always been the quiet protector in their family. Growing up in a small Ohio town, where their parents ran a corner grocery store, he'd learned early to shield Priya from the world's sharper edges. Kids at school sometimes mocked her for her thick accent or the way she carried herself, small, shy, with a limp from a childhood accident. Kash had spent years deflecting their taunts, turning their cruelty into a game of redirection. "Hey, look at my new sneakers," he'd say, or he'd tell a dumb joke to pull their attention away. At home, he'd sit with Priya, teaching her chords on his old acoustic guitar, her laughter filling the gaps where their parents' long work hours left silence. Singing, though. That was private, something he did alone or for Priya when she couldn't sleep. The idea of performing for a crowd, especially one primed to laugh at him, felt like stepping into a lion's den with nothing but a whisper. The note had come that morning, slipped into his locker with a flourish of snickers from Jake Marshall and his crew, the self-appointed kings of Jefferson High. "Talent show auditions are open," Jake had said, smirking. "You should sing, Patel. Show us what you've got." Kash knew it was a setup. Jake's crowd thrived on tearing others down, and Kash, with his quiet demeanor and tendency to avoid trouble, was an easy target. He'd almost thrown the note away, but Priya overheard and lit up like a firework. "You have to do it, Kash," she'd said, her voice bright with pride. "You're so good. They'll love you." Her faith was a weight and a wings all at once. He couldn't let her down, even if it meant walking into a trap. Backstage, the stage manager hissed, "Patel, you're up in 2. Kash's stomach churned. He wore his usual faded jeans and a plain black t-shirt, nothing like the flashy costumes of the other acts, cheerleaders with synchronized dances, a junior who juggled flaming torches. What was he thinking? He didn't even have a song prepared, not really. He'd scribbled some lyrics on a napkin during lunch, a half-formed idea inspired by Priya's courage, but it felt flimsy now. The previous act, a sophomore's shaky violin solo, ended to polite applause. The crowd was restless, hungry for something spectacular or spectacularly bad. Kash stepped toward the stage, his sneakers squeaking on the floor. The note burned in his pocket. Loser. Choke. Maybe they were right. The curtain parted, and the spotlight hit him like a fist. 500 faces stared back, a blur of curiosity and judgment. Jake and his friends sat near the front, arms crossed, grins sharp as knives. Kash's throat tightened, but then he saw Priya, her hands clasped, her smile a beacon in the sea of doubt. He adjusted the microphone, its stand wobbling under his trembling hands. Hi, he mumbled, his voice cracking. A few giggles rippled through the crowd. Jake leaned forward, whispering something to his buddies. Kash's mind blanked. He could bolt. He could fake a cough, walk off, let them have their laugh. But Priya's eyes held him in place. This wasn't just about him anymore. "I'm gonna sing something I wrote," he said, louder this time, forcing the words out. He pulled his guitar strap over his shoulder, the instrument a familiar weight. "It's for someone who believes in me." The crowd quieted, sensing something real beneath his nervous delivery. He strummed a soft chord, the notes tentative at first, then stronger. The melody was simple, born from late nights with Priya, from the stories their parents told about leaving India with nothing but hope. His voice, untrained but clear, carried the first line, "In the dark, you find a spark, a light that holds you through." The lyrics told a story of resilience, of finding strength in small moments, Priya's laugh, their mom's tired smile after a 12-hour shift, the way their dad hummed old Bollywood songs while stocking shelves. Kash's voice grew steadier, weaving a tale of kindness as armor, of love as defiance against a world that could be cruel. The crowd leaned in, their restlessness giving way to something softer. Jake's smirk faltered. Kash didn't notice. He was lost in the music, in the truth of the words he'd written for his sister, who'd never stopped believing in him. Then came the twist. Halfway through the song, Kash paused, his fingers still on the strings. "This isn't just my story," he said, his voice raw but steady. "It's for anyone who's ever been told they're not enough." He looked at Priya, then at the crowd. "I was supposed to be a joke tonight. Some of you know that." A murmur ran through the audience, heads turning toward Jake's group, who shifted uncomfortably. "But I'm here because someone believed I could be more. So this is for her, and for all of you who've ever felt small." He strummed again, launching into the chorus with a fire he didn't know he had. The words soared, simple but searing, about rising above doubt, about choosing kindness over cruelty. The emotional climax came when Priya stood up. Her limp was visible as she moved to the aisle, but her face was radiant. She started clapping to the beat, her small hands cutting through the silence. One by one, others joined her, first a few, then dozens, then the whole gymnasium. Teachers, students, even the janitor in the back, all clapping in rhythm, their faces alight with something shared. Kash's voice broke on the final note, not from nerves but from the weight of what was happening. He wasn't just singing, he was giving voice to every kid who'd ever been overlooked, every heart that had ever ached for acceptance. When the last chord faded, the gym erupted. The standing ovation wasn't just for the song, it was for Kash's courage, for his refusal to let cruelty win. Jake and his friends stayed seated, their faces pale, but the rest of the crowd roared. Priya rushed the stage, throwing her arms around Kash, her tears soaking his shirt. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. Kash hugged her back, his own eyes wet. He'd walked onto that stage expecting humiliation, but he'd found something else, the power of showing up, of turning pain into something beautiful. As they left the stage, a girl from Kash's history class approached, her eyes shy. "I've been too scared to try out for anything," she said. "But you made me think maybe I can." Others nodded, some offering quiet thanks, others just smiling. Kash realized his song hadn't just been for Priya, it had touched a nerve, reminding people of their own struggles, their own sparks in the dark. The prank that was meant to break him had instead built a bridge, connecting him to a community he'd never known he had. That night, as Kash and Priya walked home under a starlit Ohio sky, he felt lighter. The note was still in his pocket, but it didn't burn anymore. It was just paper, just words, powerless against what he'd done. "You're my hero," Priya said, her voice small but sure. Kash laughed, ruffling her hair. "Nah," he said. "We're each other's." The world hadn't changed, there would still be Jakes, still be cruelty, but Kash had changed. He'd learned that kindness, when shared, could ripple outward, transforming not just one heart but many. And in that truth, he found a hope that would carry him, and Priya, far beyond the gymnasium's walls.